All right, this is our first Atma play recording. So I guess we'll start with intros. So I'm Kevin. I'll be GMing tonight.
Hi, I'm Rob.
I'm Alex.
I'm Matthew.
Cool. So we have already made a lobby and loaded in. We are playing on the online tabletop. We're specifically playing with the free batch of stuff. So tonight we will be running Tipper City. And I'm actually going to pull up the rules real quick because we always start out by just reading the little backdrop for the world, and then we'll jump into what their mission is tonight and then straight into character introductions. So, welcome to a world near our own. History changed with the discovery of Atma, a volcanic mineral that empowers the living and entwines the dying. Machines have since evolved true artificial intelligence, though they remain shackled to specific routines, while Earth's satellite moons have cracked open to reveal an inquisitive alien race. Nations have contracted in these turbulent times, and the result is a tenuous peace across the map. But it is in the restless zones, the cracks in the map between nations, where trouble lurks. Refugees here can rely on no country for aid, so they've turned to an old weather notice to reach out. In the restless zones, a forecast of rain now means, help us. You are that help, a skilled adventurer prepared to test your limits against the world's most dangerous frontiers. You won't be alone. Other heroes are here to answer the rain notice. Learn to depend on each other and on your creativity in the face of the unknown. The sky is getting darker. This is Atma. So the world has aliens, AI, superpowers, etc. So in this case, this is the backdrop card for the stage. I'm actually going to share this to everybody. So you guys are going to be in Tipper City. This was a northern, sort of far northern frozen fishing mining town. Very quiet until 3 different celestial beings basically crashed down upon them. So 2 of these aliens that kind of came out of these awoken satellite moons, as well as this AI satellite called the Firefly. So together they sort of briefly fought, ended up joining forces, taking over the town. They have formed this ruling body known as the Triptych and created a force known as the Conclave, which is a lot of sort of recruited human soldiers who enforce their rule. That being said, since they've taken over, the town has actually kind of stabilized and sort of made peace with this development. However, about a year ago, one of the 3 members of the Triptych was actually killed by the other 2. So Valnubis was slain. And this sort of started a cold war between the remaining 2 members, this satellite called the Firefly and this psychic titan called Ogremesh. So obviously this is no longer a stable situation, and the city's population is suffering as a side effect of this. So not ideal. So that is the background for Tipper City in general. This is the story mission you guys will be doing tonight. This is the fall of the Triptych. So, So as we discussed, there's these titans and satellites. It's not that horrible for the citizens. Unfortunately, as we talked about, sort of they have engaged in this kind of war of escalation. They're constantly scheming against each other, trying to murder each other, and it's not sort of going to resolve itself cleanly if somebody does not intervene. So someone, and we will figure out who when we start playing, has said, screw it, I want to resolve this by calling in external help, and they have contracted with you guys. So your goal, the reason you've sort of all separately arrived at Tipper City, is ultimately that you've been recruited to try to deal with one of the 2 surviving members of the Triptych, so that with only 1 ruler left, the city can kind of finally stabilize in a sort of peaceful overlord situation. So yeah, that is your goal. Defeat a member of the Triptych or a proxy for that member. And in this case, we're going to actually go ahead and immediately flip over to the collection and deal out a random extra to represent that character. So let's see who we get. Going to flip this over to be a star extra, and that'll be the proxy for the Triptych tonight. So we'll talk more about them in a minute. For now, I'm just going to set them out of the way up here. With that being said, so you're Tipper City, northern mining town, 2 overlords fighting each other. You've been hired to kill one of them. So turning it over to you guys, would you like to introduce your characters? And then we'll get started figuring out like what has brought the 4 of you here. Or 3 of you, sorry.
Who's first?
Whoever'd like to go.
I can go ahead and go. So, I am Belyaga the Bear. I was originally a member of the Ursa Major Cavalry Regiment in a particular town, and I helped to defend against all the different things that could cause us harm. And during a particular blizzard, I had a weird interaction with some ghosts, and it has turned me into what you would call a myriad, a collection of souls. And as part of that, I've gained a bit of sentience. So with all that together, I've started to explore the world with a fresh set of eyes. Well, one set of eyes and many minds. And part of that is to have a goal of understanding Atma as it has been discovered, and part of it as well as how I was created.
Very cool. Okay. Matthew or Alex?
You want to go ahead?
Matthew?
I can go ahead.
Sure.
So I am Kilo. I am the specialist, referring to weapons and arms. I am very tech savvy. I have a military background. And I have built basically any kind of technological weapon that you can think of, and maybe some you can't. And so I'm super excited to see what else is out there.
Very cool. I'm guessing by the fact that Matthew has been like jauntily staring in one spot for a minute now that his webcam has frozen. So that's okay. If he reconnects, we will introduce his character as a latecomer, and we'll just proceed for now. So, okay, so we have a bear with lots of souls and a weapon specialist. So I guess some of the questions that come to mind is, like, how did you guys hear about this contract, and kind of why did you take it? And then also, like, do you guys know each other, or is this your first time meeting?
Belyaga, were you in the army before?
Yes, it was a particular regiment, to my understanding.
Okay, maybe we met there.
Could be, yeah.
Oh, right, because Kilo's military as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe at one point we were actually on different sides of a conflict, but at least during those times, and maybe since then, there's been a time to mend those wounds, but especially once I've received a completely different perspective and have had this opportunity to see the world with fresh eyes. So.
Right, because when you were a bear in like the military, were you more of like a normal bear? Like.
Yeah, probably more of a like follow orders, just primary instruction.
Okay, and then as on Kilo's side, like, and maybe this was a little while ago now, but like, what was his reaction as this guy who like invents crazy weapons to be fighting against like a bear with a tank on top of it?
I think he was like, "Tell me more. How did that happen?" And I'm looking at your card specifically, and I think he would have been fascinated by this cold iron move that you have. And he would be really interested in researching like what's the role that Atma could play in advancing this weapons technology, especially when it comes to like fusing it with like the body.
Yeah, and maybe as part of that, you've been able to help like as an inventor, maybe perform maintenance and keep my equipment improved over time.
Right, because it looks like you have a gun and armor, but maybe not in the best state because you probably no longer have your supporting men. Okay, so then so there's this contract to kind of come up north and basically get involved in this fight that's not really your own, or maybe it is. But yeah, so like what would kind of hook Kilo and Belyaga and bring them here? And if you don't have an answer, that's totally fine. We can establish that in the first scene. Because I'm currently leaning towards the idea that it will basically begin in a bar with like a hooded figure who's like, "Thanks for coming." Big reveal. We'll have to find out if that works based on what the first scene is. Oh, actually, yeah, that might work. But in the meantime, if you have ideas first, we can totally go with those.
At the moment, nothing specific is coming to mind.
Are you from up around here? Are you like an ice bear?
Maybe. I don't know if I'm from here originally, but maybe because of Tipper City being in a colder climate and my acclimation to the cold, that makes sense to me. Maybe this is where I've been calling home for a while.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I have, and if you have any ideas, feel free to jump in. But I have some thoughts that we can hash out at the start of the scene. So I'm also fine just diving right in with that.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So dealt out 3 scenes at random. Flipped over the first one. This is where you got. Let me actually click share. So looks like Matthew's back. We'll introduce him in a second. So it looks like you'll be, maybe conveniently enough, you have arrived in the city on a little boat. We'll say you're not on this boat. You arrive on like a little fishing boat, but you pull up next to this enormous cargo ship called the Matryoshka. So it's very conspicuous. It is by far the largest thing in this sort of frozen harbor. And you've heard of it by reputation. So like the town tends to have a lot of little fishing vessels, but this ship is crewed by ghosts actually, which is unusual but not completely unheard of in this world, and kind of does the big major imports and exports for anything rare. So like I think they had mining. If they were mining Atma, this is probably the ship it would go out on. If they were importing anything suspicious, you could bet either legally or illegally, it probably came in aboard this ship. So yeah, as your little, ferry boat is pulling into harbor, you can see this thing. We'll say it's, an early morning. It's mist coming off the water. There's like bright sunlight, but it's still pretty cold. And you can see they're already busy at work, kind of offloading cargo from this ship. So I'll talk about the goals, even if we end up coming back to them. So for each scene, there's 1 of 2 goals. We kind of figure out which one makes sense to lead you towards your story goal. And when you complete the scene goal, that's how we know when we're done and we progress to the next scene. So in this case, you guys can help me decide which of these makes more sense in your sort of contract to deal with a triptych member. Smuggling some contraband into the ship's cargo hold to complete a deal, or signaling somebody offshore using the ship's radio. And again, if you want, we can come back to that after you have your sort of initial face-to-face with whoever issued the contract.
What jumps out to me is the second one, especially if we're trying to meet up with somebody here. I also kind of like it. It would have to be really like clandestine, right? Because we're basically here to like overthrow the government.
Yeah.
So I think we'll probably want to be like really sneaky about it. Yeah, I'm also open to the first one.
Yeah, I think the first mission makes more sense in a situation where like we knew they were on there and we were trying to maybe do something to cause some discord, but without that kind of information yet, I don't think it makes as much sense as like communicating out.
Okay, cool. All right, so we'll tentatively go for the second one. Matthew, mic check. Are you back in and able to speak?
Yep.
Cool, we can hear you. All right, so we introduced Belyaga and Kilo. We established they may have met even if it was on opposite sides of a fight since they were both military. But do you want to introduce your character?
Yep, so I'm playing Laterna. I was a mining robot in the Rheingau Institute, and I discovered that I was shackled to be a mining robot and wanted to not do that anymore. And I ended up digging my way out and freeing myself and modifying my form. And I got some superpowers along the way when I dug through some Atma. And now I am kind of on a crusade to free other machines.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And so I guess you have less of a military background. So similar question, would you have encountered Kilo and Belyaga in the past? or are you meeting them for the first time? And then likewise, do you have any thoughts on what brought you here to sort of carry out this contract and overthrow the triptych, or do you want to hash that out with the other two during this initial meetup?
I think I came here because I heard.
Oh, Matthew? He's been having internet problems, so it looks like he may have frozen up again. All right, Laterna may be a ghost who pops in and out. Rob, you said you figured out what the little clicking was? I'm hearing it occasionally.
Oh, okay. I wonder if it's just clicking at my mouse.
Oh, nice. Anyways, okay, well, we'll see if Matthew unfreezes. So you guys pull in this bright, cold, frigid morning. You are in this sort of harbor area. You can see this big Matryoshka ship, but you guys are actually not headed there. You're headed to this little tiny dive bar that's like sandwiched between two enormous monolithic warehouses. And you venture inside. And so as part of starting the scene, I got some tokens. I spend tokens to do things like play characters. So I'm going to play a character. And it costs 1 token. I'm actually going to play their named version, because why not? Pop them down here. Right. So a hooded figure in the corner. As you kind of open the door, you're backlit by this, bright morning sun, and you see a silhouette in the corner booth, kind of like haze, smoke, neon lights, but they gesture like they've been waiting for you, and they, come on over here. You see before them are basically like 4 shot glasses laid out on the table. What do you do?
Beliaga, what do you think? You trust your gut on this one?
I think so, and it is a pretty big gut, so subtlety is not Beliaga's strong suit, and I think she starts to just walk over, not even trying to hide the fact.
Okay. Cool. And Kilo?
Yeah. I feel brave when I'm with a giant, terrifying army bear. So, absolutely.
Excellent. So yeah, kind of back in this sort of smoky shadows of this corner booth, you see this older woman. She's apparently smoking a pipe, just kind of gestures for you guys to have a seat. And when you look sort of comfortable, she slides a shot glass over to each of you. She says, "I was expecting a third, but the morning's still young." I am Mac Wiggles. I'm sort of the queen of industry in the city. Not necessarily the industry that you can find in the market, but there are plenty of jobs that need to be done that not everybody's willing to ask for. So I kind of take care of those, and I'm glad you've responded to my request, because I sort of have the cream of the crop of jobs that not just anybody is willing to take. And I guess she asked, what, you guys aren't from around here. What do you know about the situation in Tipper City? And if necessary, she briefly recaps like the stuff with the triptych, how there's basically there's 2 survivors, 1 that died a year ago.
Yeah.
Well,
Since
the passing of Valnubis, it definitely has been a little rougher around here.
Yeah. So she says, "Well, how do we phrase this? The public story is a good one, but it's not the accurate one. And I've been hired to sort of deal with the problem, put sort of a permanent resolution on it. There are 2 members of the triptych left, but there's only one of them that's really driving this Cold War. You see the Firefly, this AI satellite, it is behind the destruction of Valnubis, and at this point, it's actually basically using the other surviving member of the triptych, Ogremesh, almost like a puppet threat, right? It's sort of as long as there are 2 of us fighting, he can kind of get away with anything. So Ogremesh is actually not invested in this fight at all, would like to just sort of be conciliatory, back down, and call it a day. Would even leave the city if that were an option, and is essentially kind of basically locked into this fight by her opponent, who needs a threat to remain. So Mac has actually been hired through a grapevine that she believes actually leads all the way back to Ogremesh to deal with this problem, whether it is to kind of get the Firefly to simmer down, or even to really just get Ogremesh out of the city, right? Because without a sort of puppet threat to rage against, the Firefly might almost like its position might almost implode. So she has put her ear to the ground. She had to root far and wide because nobody in Tipper City was kind of willing to take on a gig this large. But she thought maybe Kilo would be interested to know that some of the weapons Kilo designed are actually being used by the Firefly to keep control of the city. And as for Belyaga, I think she's actually surprised to see you. Maybe she put out the message to your handler or somebody, because maybe, right, you said you used to be in the army. Maybe she's actually surprised to see you walk in. She thought she had kind of contacted someone else, but maybe the message sort of bounced off its intended recipient, or they weren't alive anymore and it fell kind of to you. But she thinks this is an improvement. But yeah, so she kind of like pours drinks for you guys and leans back and is like, so what do you think?
She'll drink her shot.
Belyaga tries to grab it and realizes the paw is probably not as dexterous as desired to pick up a shot. Do you have something a little bigger?
She like raps on the table. She's like, I need a bowl. They bring over this like big tureen for soup, like lay it down. She just dumps the bottle in. It's like, I'm sure you'll metabolize it.
Bottoms up and takes a sip from it.
Mac, very nice to meet you, and this is a very interesting story. As you've noted, I am a foreigner to Tipper City, but Belyaga is a good, dear friend of mine. So this does seem to be a bit of a diplomatic mission or stealth. What were you envisioning?
She was envisioning either stealth or just basically defeating the Firefly for good. She feels like diplomacy is certainly an option. It's just one that she's worried would go nowhere, since the Firefly has no like motivation to kind of give up this position where it can freely posture against this sort of fictional threat. But if you have an ace in the hole where you think you could convince it otherwise, she won't tell you no. But she had imagined like smuggling Ogremesh out of the city might be the ticket.
Almost if we remove the scapegoat, maybe the story crumbles kind of situation.
Right. Maybe actually, so now we even maybe have an opportunity to tie this into the scene goal. So maybe the Matryoshka being in port is actually fortuitous, because it travels with like a second sort of smaller smuggling vessel that's currently offshore that could be the perfect escape route for Ogremesh if you could kind of get wind to it. But yeah, and I think so. Yeah, she lays out some of the details. She's like, I'm pretty open with what I can pay you, because I expect to be reimbursed. I'm even willing to offer you sort of some tools for the job. And let's throw a prop out here.
Oh,
Yeah, let's do this. She kind of pulls this bundle out from under the table. It's wrapped in these like oil-stained cloths, and she pulls just enough of it that Kilo can probably recognize a staple weapon. It's this basically, it's like an electrified almost crossbow that shoots lightning. She's like, non-lethal, of course, but good for knocking on doors. Throw that in for the job.
I might workshop this random burst into flames thing.
Okay.
I think your hands are better suited for
Of course.
that kind of item than my paws. So
All right. If Kilo accepts it, I'll throw that onto your sheet.
Sounds great.
Okay. But yeah, so she once more is like, so this sound good? Do you think you guys are up for this? Do you need any other info to commence?
I think that I'm good.
I think with the plan laid forward, I think I'm good to proceed.
Cool. She probably hands you a slip of paper and says basically like once you've secured passage, this will lead you to a contact who can get you the whereabouts on where Okramesh is currently essentially imprisoned. And she stands up, knocks her pipe ash out, and saunters out of the bar. So, Kilo, you're pretty familiar with technology, right?
Yes.
Would you like to do anything with this shock popper right off the bat? Like, do you want to, you said modify it or inspect it or anything?
I think I might like to disguise it as another device.
Okay.
And that way we can use it. It won't be like automatically like marked as a weapon. What do we think would be like a fun device we could disguise it as? Maybe like
Oh, like a fishing rod or something?
yeah. Or reveal a hidden use for it. Its hidden use is that it's a fishing rod. Yeah, let's disguise it. I think that sounds fun. And then we don't have to worry about people being scared.
Okay. That sounds great. That sounds like your base move, so go ahead and roll that.
Plus bright.
Very cool. Crit. Okay.
Yay!
Fascinating. Okay, so describe it. You said you make it look like something else?
Yeah, what do we think is fun? Maybe like a flashlight?
Okay, like downsize
Like a
it a
big
lot.
flashlight? Or yeah, I can't a flashlight.
That works.
That actually sounds really good.
Yeah, let's go with flashlight.
Okay. And let's see, because you crit that, I feel like I should give you something else. So maybe in disassembling it and modifying it, you find some other parts that don't seem like they necessarily serve the function of the device. And what I'm specifically thinking of, so Mac has this move, offer a poisoned gift. So as I'm trying to think about like what type of character she is, I'm feeling like you don't know yet what motivated it, but she seems to have made some changes to this device before giving it to you. I'm thinking there's either a tracker in there.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, let's go with that. So yeah, you find a tracking device. You can tell it's currently active, but being a technological genius, you can kind of like leave it on, like kind of covertly change it to broadcast misleading information, like take it out without turning it off, whatever you'd like to do with it.
So I'll hold this up to Belyaga and be like, what do you think about this? This is some shady stuff. Why does she need to keep track of us? Should we stick it on a fish? What do you think?
Well, it makes me wonder if Mac is actually on the level. And after everything we've just heard, kind of takes a moment. And I think I'd like to use this as an opportunity to maybe perform a realize.
Sure.
And combine both the tracker and the story we've been told so far to see, is Ugramesh actually the problem? Or is this something else? So
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
realize is either a bright or a calms. And I think in this situation, I feel like Bright is actually probably more thinking through the situation. So,
Okay. Ooh, failed.
ooh,
Oh.
So do I want to? Yeah, I'll take an extra token because this early on, I feel like it's more interesting if you have information. So we're gonna say you succeed. Do you have a thought on the answer? Because I actually don't know yet. I'm making it up as I go. Um,
well, I think maybe
Ooh, I have a
given the
thought.
situation, it might be a combination of there might be just details we don't know yet,
okay.
where and maybe instead of it necessarily being that she's lying to us, maybe this is like giving
Oh,
an alternative to situation, such as like maybe we're the fall guys for what's about to happen. Because taking out a
oh,
member of the triptych might be a really big kind of thing that's going to have public news everywhere. So you have a scapegoat for what's going on.
okay. I like that. Alex, did you have a thought as well?
I do. So I think that she told us part of her plan, but then what she didn't say was like, oh, yeah, we smuggle this person out. This AI thing implodes, and then peace settles over. But now there's this power vacancy. And who is
Mhm.
left to run Tipper City after the one leader is smuggled out and the other leader destroys himself?
Maybe the Queen of Industry.
Maybe the Queen of Industry.
I like that. Okay. So
And she
she's
wants to track us so she can get rid of us when the job's over.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe, yeah, I'm thinking like Belyaga having like a sense of smell. Maybe even something like something about the liquor she served you. Like you like, it rings a
Mhm.
bell and you are like, wait a minute, I know where that would come from. And yeah, you put some of those pieces together with Kilo's help, and you're like, this is no pun intended fishy. Um, okay. So interesting. All right. So then, what do you guys want to do next? I'm gonna have to spend a token soon, but before you guys leave the bar, how does this just change your outlook? Do you still want to? How far along do you want to chase the plan before you pivot based on that info?
Mac is so cool. This is such a great character. Um,
Maybe for
I
now or go ahead, actually.
I was just gonna say I don't think I have a particularly strong moral compass.
Okay.
I'm an arms inventor. I think I'm generally like lawful neutral when it comes to these things.
Okay.
Um,
So this might not necessarily be a deal breaker. It's just more information.
yeah. How do you feel about it, Belyaga?
There is a definite foul smell to this whole thing. And so far we might have suspicion on Mac, and we know the Firefly may be involved. The one side I haven't heard from yet is Ugramesh. So I'm
Okay.
wondering if we get at least to see their side of the story. Maybe at that point we'll get enough to know which way we want to proceed.
Okay.
So maybe follow along at least for a point.
Okay. So you're thinking still go ahead and at least try to signal the ship offshore, just so you still have that piece lined up.
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Maybe that's who we're signaling to.
who is?
Ogremesh.
Oh, Ogremesh. I'm thinking Ogremesh is in the city. The ship offshore is like waiting to potentially receive her.
Mm. Okay.
But maybe the person on the ship is an agent of Ogremesh who has more information. Speaking of which, okay, so you head out the bar. You can see the Matryoshka kind of down the dock. There's all these ghosts like offloading cargo from it. Um, there's some light security. You probably see some of these conclave troopers who keep order in the city. But yeah, you can see these radio towers spinning on the top. And from what Mac has told you, you think that if you could somehow sneak aboard and kind of get to the comms cabin, deck, whatever, you would be able to very quickly kind of signal this other smaller ghost vessel offshore. Um, so you guys can tell me how you want to approach that. Uh,
Hmm.
but you see, like, kind of standing guard on the dock just off the boat is a what you can only describe as a mecha knight. Um, and Kilo, we said that they were using weapons you invented. Did you invent him?
I think I did not invent him.
Okay.
If he worked on an assembly line,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
perhaps I invented some of his upgrades.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, maybe when you get closer, you'll see
Yeah.
specifically what of yours he's wielding.
Yes.
Okay. So with that said, so you guys are kind of, nobody's paying attention to you yet, but you can see this sort of lightly guarded gangway up to the ship. There's this sort of iceberg-filled water in the harbor. You kind of want to get on the ship and up to this sort of platform on the top where the radios are. How do you want to try and proceed?
Is Sir Rudder a part of the ship security?
He does appear to be keeping an eye on the ship. He looks a bit out of place, like he's been stationed here. And he also, maybe as you watch, he keeps trying to like either help or offer his opinion or insight. He's basically getting in the way a lot. Somewhat obliviously. He keeps trying to sort of nobly extend his very long arms and assist. But you also see him wave people away when they get too close.
I feel like this knight is begging for something to rescue, which could be a great diversion.
Oh, that's cool.
Maybe we can do something with this crossbow. Maybe we can make it seem like somebody's hurt or somebody needs help.
Possibly.
I can't imagine you're very sneaky, are you?
She just kind of looks down at her massive form and then looks back up.
It felt rude to assume. I just had to ask. You never know.
It doesn't work out well.
Yeah, maybe. I'm
curious if there's anybody else apart from Sir Rudder in the scene that might be. I know you mentioned that he's trying to maybe offer assistance that isn't necessarily warranted.
Yeah, let's say, this is not exactly what I expected, but let's actually say that as you kind of survey the dockyard, so there's lots of cargo going on, there's also lots of refuse and garbage and scraps. And you very quickly start spotting how there are certain areas that people are kind of skirting around. And occasionally you see these like red eyes in the shadows or like peeking up from under like a dock. And you realize there is actually quite an infestation of these Wendigos. It's kind of like human-sized giant mutant squirrel, like were-squirrels. Yeah, they are mostly content to eat garbage, but maybe you do, like when somebody gets too close, you start seeing them like following them, like waiting for them to get within grabbing distance. Most of the dock workers are doing a good job of staying out of reach, but and yeah, of course, Sir Rudder is oblivious to this problem.
Rob, you had to ask. Now we have Wendigos.
Well, maybe
I love it.
Maybe there's an opportunity here. And you said they're near a trash can, right?
Yes.
Well, I think I'm going to try and use one of my abilities then, which is Cold Iron, which as part of the supernatural powers I've gained, I have the ability to emit ice from either my own hide or from nearby metallic objects.
Nice.
And what I'm thinking is maybe I can emit one near a trash can, startle a Wendigo into the scene, and give a little more attention that maybe Sir Rudder is going to have to focus on that problem.
That sounds awesome. Go for it.
That's great.
Okay, so I will roll plus calm. Let's see what happens.
Very
Ooh.
nice.
Nice.
So what is this experience like for Belyaga when you like channel this essentially supernatural power?
So Belyaga kind of folds in on herself just a little bit, almost like curling up into a ball. Eyes are shut, is breathing very calmly, or as calmly as a bear can. And there's just a moment where her eyes open and there's a pulse of blue light.
Nice.
And from the trash can emerges this just single spire of ice.
Cool. Yeah, let's go with. So your goal was to startle a Wendigo. Let's do that. I'm actually gonna use this. They have this paralyzed prey with its house. Bander, come on. The cat has decided that this is his territory.
Oh,
Your
It's
little
fine.
Wendigo.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fine when he's just laying between the keyboard and the screen. Come on, buddy, you gotta move. Thank you. Right, so it is going to, startle, basically jump from this sort of alley where it's kind of minding its own business out into broad daylight, like scatter some ghosts. They're gonna like drop what they're carrying, and this sort of turmoil like derails its focus on food, and it goes into like full feral hunting mode. And the first thing it does is it howls, and it's this like ear-piercing, like reverberating, glass-shattering, blood-curdling sound that literally, like, you feel it in your spine. It just paralyzes you. You guys are probably far enough away, but like you see ghosts essentially going rigid. Even Sir Rudder, like sparks come out of his eyes. And this also attracts the other Wendigos. So all like from the docks, from the alleys, you see these red eyes lighting up. And they just flock. Like, this is the signal. It's time to fight, time to eat. But yes, Sir Rudder is very distracted. So how would you guys like to take advantage of this?
Oh, I love that scene.
So you see, we'll call it
All right.
like 5 Wendigos. And they are converging basically on Sir Rudder and some of these ghost dock workers who have essentially been paralyzed.
well, I think I'm going to yield it to Kilo and see what you have in mind.
I am torn. No, if I'm playing Tequila, Alex wants to just turn up the volume on this chaos and just start like pushing stuff into the harbor. No, but Kilo would be like kind of watching everyone and like observing everything and like, all right, 1, 2, 3. I think our time is coming. I think we need to just run. I think they're distracted enough. We can just go for it.
Perfect. They are distracted. Do you want to try and like essentially bolt along the dock and essentially run up the gangway into the boat, into the ship? Or do you want to essentially hop in the water and kind of swim under the docks and essentially climb up the anchor chain?
Oh, that sounds really cool. Running seems smartest, but that sounds really cool.
I assume Belyaga as a bear is probably like completely at home in icy water.
That sounds pretty fair. I think the problem is going to be climbing up the side of the boat, though.
Sure.
Oh, maybe we can use the crossbow. Could we use it kind of like a grappling hook?
Sure.
Oh, wait, it shoots lightning. Shoots arc lightning.
Maybe you could use it to like magnetize the anchor chain somehow so that like
Oh, yeah.
you like can adhere to it with metal or something.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Or maybe I can sort of mod it to
Okay.
have like a hook,
Sure.
and we can kind of climb up the anchor chain.
I guess you could also try and use it to like essentially blast a hole in the hull so you don't have to climb up. Although that might be bad for them later. But maybe that's fine. Okay. Well, in that case, so if you guys are heading for the water, I'd say you have no trouble reaching it. As you see, Wendigos have probably gotten 1 or 2 of the ghosts and started like essentially gnawing on them. You see Sir Rudder finally like unfold. He probably starts with these like what look like machetes. They're like gleaming in the sun, and he just starts hacking at them like, "Back, foul beasts!" And of course, 3 of them immediately like jump onto him. He probably actually deploys several additional arms to just like beat them off.
I invented that.
Yep. Yeah.
Be
I'm
proud of
thinking,
your creation.
I'm thinking maybe you even see some kind of like resonance bomb in his chest that's like charging up that you recognize as yours, where you could tell in about 12 seconds he's gonna unleash like a big shockwave. But you guys will be safely passed by then. So yeah, you said you guys are
I gotta move.
going for the water.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
I think it sounds fun.
Is Kilo jumping in as well, or are you gonna try and like balance on Belyaga?
Am I
gonna-
allowed?
Just don't make it a common occurrence. And I think I'm buoyant enough. Yeah, I'll let Kilo
Okay.
get on my back.
I'm thinking.
I'll be mindful of those spikes.
I'm thinking one of the Wendigos does actually break ranks and spot you. Like it's one of those T-Rex moments where its vision's like, ooh, fast dashing prey. And I think it's actually going to race after you. So as Belyaga splashes into the water and Kilo's like landing kind of poised on his back, you look up as there's shadow blots out the sun and you see this basically flying squirrel monster like essentially coming down and landing on Belyaga's back with you, like trying to rake you with its claws. What do you do?
Yeah, I'm definitely. I pull out this crossbow, and a light shines on the Wendigo's face
Okay.
as it like turns into a flashlight. But yeah, I'm gonna fire this crossbow.
Okay. That sounds like a good use of barrage, maybe.
Okay. Barrage, calm or sly? I think calm. So I'm not really being sneaky. See, I'm like dodging the claws and trying to make it do fire and not flashlight.
Okay. We'll say so. Yeah, you managed to stun it. Maybe not before it kind of like rakes its claws across Belyaga's back. So I will throw 1 harm at Belyaga, although you are free to blunt that with your armor if you want, because I think that's your base move.
I think for now I'll soak it.
Okay. So yeah, you feel this kind of like burning like line rake your back. But yeah, so Kilo, what's it look like when you stun this thing?
This, and I think part of it too is because this is new technology that I've like not necessarily held before. So he's trying to figure it out as quick as he can, and I think he's probably figuring out all these features that are not helpful to it. So the flashlight turns on and like a pop-up map comes up, and like maybe it starts playing music, and then eventually like an arrow, arc of lightning comes out and just like hits him in the chest.
So while those features are happening is when it manages to get Belyaga, and then finally it like goes stiff. You smell like burning fur, and it just topples back into the ice water.
Kilo's like, and this is why I don't use other people's weapons. This is why I only trust my own weapons.
Nice. Yeah, so Belyaga, you managed to paddle over to the chain without issue. You guys had a plan for climbing up, or are you just going to brute force it?
I think I'm gonna just try and climb it.
Okay.
Bears can climb. Bears are good at climbing.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, actually, that seems perfectly valid.
Yeah, especially if there's like a chain or something that I can hold.
Yeah,
Get
I
a
think
better
there is.
grasp on.
Yeah, go for it. I'll say whatever stat you feel is applicable.
I think I'm gonna go with the hasty as kind of like a survive kind of check.
Crit.
Nice.
Yeah, so you get aboard no problem. We'll say actually your diversion has been phenomenally successful. So even the ghosts left on the ship have essentially flocked down to the dock with like cardboard tubes and like shovels, fire axes. They're basically trying to like fend off the Wendigos from their crew members. And then you probably hear this like discharge of energy, this kind of whoomp, as Sir Rudder basically stuns everybody and starts like knocking Wendigos into the water. So the deck is clear. You can see like straight across to the comms room. I feel like I'm forgetting the term, but the bridge. That's the word. The bridge. Do you anything else you want to do, or do you just basically want to rush right in there and try to signal?
I think we probably ought to rush in and then make tracks.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll say, yeah, you have no issue getting there. You see the comms devices, but I assume Kilo has no issue with those. And so maybe Mac gave you basically the coordinates or like the frequency or whatever. And so you hear some static, this hiss, and then a voice basically saying like, copy. Copy. Are you there? Matryoshka, are you there?
Yes, this is Matryoshka. Who are we speaking with, please?
Let me figure that out. I'm not going to use that one. Hang on. Actually, I have an idea. You get I have some hesitation, and then this is Yulmoth on the ghost. Over. Repeat. This is Yulmoth. Is that Ogremesh? Is that you?
Belyaga, did Matt give us any sort of like code word or something?
Oh, that's a good question. She probably would have, right? Since she did actually want you to get Ogremesh out. Sure. We'll say yes. She gave you some kind of code word. Maybe it is I don't know, bourbon.
The Wendigo is loose.
The Wendigo. Yeah. So you get another brief hiss of static, and then Yulmoth goes, "Wait. So is tonight the night? We're making a run."
Tonight is always a good night for bourbon.
Are you ready?
Yes, but there is a small problem.
No problem is small in these types of situations. What is going on?
I had this up earlier. Where was it? You just get another kind of hiss of static, and then you hear her speak again, although her voice is like breaking up a bit more. She's like, look out to sea. And you can see why she's slightly concerned. It's still a fairly bright morning, but on the horizon over the ocean, you essentially see nothing but this like wall of ominous like gray and white clouds. And it is surging towards the shore. It's a ways out, but not probably for long. So yeah, Yulmoth again comes through. She's probably far enough out that she's actually rushing to like escape the storm. And she's like, yeah, we're going to have to probably tighten the timeline a little bit because I can't leave through that. So meet me at shore in like 2 hours.
Okay.
All right. She's like, good luck.
Same to you. Same to all of us.
Yeah, so you hear like another hiss of static and the line goes dead. But I would say that you have successfully radioed your contact. So you are free to conclude the scene. I assume getting off the boat's about as simple.
Yeah, probably hop back on the opposite side of the shore and then just flip back over.
Okay. Very good. All right, so we'll set this scene aside. You can go ahead and unlock your second move.
Yay.
And we will figure out. So Mac gave you the frequency. She gave you the code word, and she also gave you basically some street address in the city. So we'll say once you're back ashore, you kind of see Sir Rudder has finished mopping up the Wendigos. You amble past and you make your way. The sky is kind of at this point, like the sun is actually now behind clouds. Like it's mid-afternoon, but it's gotten a bit darker. Or not mid-afternoon, like it's like noon. And the street address takes you to, hey, Matthew.
Hey, it's been stable for a little bit. Do you want me to try to join or do you want me to stay out?
Yeah, you can join us. Perfect timing because we just started.
I was watching.
Yep. All right. Yeah, we'll bring you in just a sec. So yeah, so Mac has given you the street address to an area kind of it's in the city, but maybe a little bit outside the like bustling industrious parts. So you see, yeah, this old aircraft hangar, but it's in like full-on forge mode. There's sparks, like even from this distance, you can see it's like brightly illuminated. There's molten metal. Most of the people working here are humans or mechs, and they seem to be building, all kinds of things. Oh, hello.
Hi, Cam.
You probably specifically have, again, like the street address, another like code word. We'll say Mac loves code words. They're probably all like flavors of liquor. So maybe this one is like rum, and it basically says like ask at the bar. But yeah, so we'll talk about the scene goals in a second. But as you guys are puttering up to this, you see this shadow lurking in the alley, and this one does not have eyes. In fact, it has 4 glowing green eyes.
Oh.
So yeah, as you want to introduce, I guess we introduced Laterna earlier. I don't know if you caught it, but basically they took this contract from Mac, who was expecting 3 people to show up. So presumably at least one person did reach out to you.
So yeah, Laterna is this robot. She sees you guys approaching and says, "What flesh bags go there?"
Belyaga, is this a friend of yours?
I don't think I've seen this thing before in my life. I'm not quite sure I want to keep seeing it either.
Can we help you, rude robot friend?
I got a call that there was a non-robotic overlord that needed to be overthrown, and I came to help.
Ah, the call is correct. We actually, so your technology, can I do kind of something just to establish that you're on the level, just for like narrative purposes?
If you are a friend to robots, you can do robot stuff, sure.
So this is an interesting question, real quick. Laterna, would you have heard of Kilo, who is basically like a famous inventor of technology?
Can I do a realize?
Sure.
All right, so let's see, bright or calm? I'll do calm. I don't pay attention well.
I think you're, yep.
I don't think I've heard of Kilo.
Okay. All right. So yep. So basically, go ahead, Kilo.
So I was kind of thinking, could I use my remote downlink almost like an insight check, just to make sure that this isn't just some crazy assassin mining robot out to jump us and kill us?
I like that.
Hmm.
I actually really like
So
that
he's
if
kind
the
of
answer
just
ends
like
up
got his
being yes.
glasses.
Yes, please approach me.
Yeah, go for it.
That is threatening. Yeah, so he's just gonna, his little glasses will just sort of light up.
Okay.
And you'll see little like code almost like flash across the lenses. So right.
Okay.
Partial.
So I'm thinking, and actually, you guys can probably tell me how this goes. Some of the thoughts going through my mind are things like maybe Laterna realizes you're essentially probing her and may or may not love that. Maybe you find a tracker on Laterna and realize that Mac has actually bugged Laterna. Laterna might not know that. I think one that would be kind of amusing would be if it turns out Laterna has actually been sent like at cross purposes. Like Mac hired you guys to get Ogremesh out and Laterna to like cause chaos or something, and maybe you have to like get her aligned. But I'm gonna turn it over to you guys. You guys tell me how this goes.
Kilo, I think you definitely see some disturbing articles about past incidents.
The tracking device does kind of make sense. We had established earlier that our contact here, like the person who gave us the job, had a tracking device and a gift that she gave to us so that she could keep tabs. So it does kind of make sense. If she had opportunity, she would have tried to track you also.
Does Kilo tell Laterna that she's got a tracking device?
I think once Kilo ascertains that Laterna is not here to double cross us, yes.
I'm not sure you can ascertain that.
Because Laterna doesn't actually know.
So I guess Kilo's like, all right, well, we've only got 2 hours, so.
So Laterna is very grateful that you've told her that she's being tracked by some double-crossing human scumbag, and she will totally help you take them down.
Down with humans.
Down with other humans. You guys seem cool.
Bel Yaga, as you're watching this exchange, you catch a familiar scent. It smells like wet fur, and something between alcohol and, no pun intended, like spirit. A vague ethereal aura that you yourself are familiar with, since you are literally always emanating it. And looking up, you see red eyes, although one of them is glowing blue, and you see other sort of blue lights as this shape is essentially crawling down this, we'll say you guys are in an alleyway overlooking the ironworks. You see this thing basically crawling down the brickwork, like its teeth are chattering. It's coming straight towards you.
Oh. And I'm just gonna point a claw up in the direction company.
Laterna asks, "Is this with you as well?"
No, we thought it was with you. It's not with you.
Oh, let's ask it. Laterna would like to teleport it over to us.
Wait, teleport? You can teleport?
I've got this shield that swallows things and spits them back out.
Okay. Go for it. Yeah, it's kind of chittering down the building, becoming increasingly sort of like noisy. And it seems to have its eyes locked on Bel Yaga.
And now it is immediately in front of Bel Yaga as the shield appears, and it accidentally walks right into it, and the next shield appears in front of Bel Yaga and spits it out.
And I think in
Laterna
reaction,
says,
I pardon the pun, but I'm just going to go for a giant bear hug.
Okay.
Oh.
Absolutely. I'm going to spend a token on its move. It actually hugs you back. You kind of like feel its, I guess, garbage tinged breath like right on your nose. Its teeth are still like chittering. But yeah, it stretches these fairly long, almost sloth-like squirrel arms, and you feel again this like searing as the claws dig into you. So I'm gonna deal you one more harm, but this time it's not just a burning sensation, but like a cold rushes inside you. Not like a physical one, but again, like this blue light that's emanating from it that you kind of recognize. You feel it basically mingling with your own. And if you would like to, you see that this thing is like covered in scars and wounds. Your souls can essentially mingle with it as well. But basically it is essentially trying to merge souls. Like you feel the like new voices popping up inside your consciousness. You're not sure why. What do you do?
I guess the question to think through is it trying to on its last opportunity to bring the spirits over and survive, or is it trying to take over? So is it a malicious or survival instinct. And I think I want to try and ferret that out with the real eyes.
Okay, go ahead and roll that with tough, actually, because this seems like something where you would be relying more on your like spiritual like essence. Cool. So I have a thought, but I'm also open if you have one of those that you prefer more.
Oh, I actually think because Wendigo Red is also a myriad, I think it's more of a survival instinct, and it's an opportunity where the two are. It's finding a kindred spirit. Pardon the pun, but
Okay. Yeah. So you get the sense, yeah, its physical form is kind of depleted, beat up. And so yeah, you feel some of it essentially taking shelter in you. You take some control over it. But as this sort of mingling occurs, you hear a very, very distinct third presence. This one does not feel like cold, ethereal, ghostly. This is almost more of like a raw, like reverberating like symbol in the back of your mind as Ogremesh basically says, "Can you hear me?" Not trying to ape like the Verizon commercial, but more of like a very distant echo, as though she's like desperately trying to be heard.
yes, but I'm not sure who I'm talking to.
Oh, thank goodness. I was not. I was afraid that this creature would not survive long enough to pass on. And yeah, as she's speaking, you probably see the Wendigo essentially like slumping against the alleyway. It is not looking good. But it appears or maybe she briefly explains like because the thing has sort of so many souls and is sort of like raw and open, it was the Wendigos in general and this one in particular were particularly receptive to her essentially psychic reach. So she is locked in a location she's not quite sure of. We'll assume it's the third scene. And has been basically trying to break out the only way she can, which is psychically controlling the subjects in the city that are open to that. And it's pretty much the Wendigos at this point.
Wow.
So yeah, Kilo and Laterna, what do you guys think as you see all this? Because so far you're not actually hearing anything.
Yeah.
You just see the twitching hug and then the Wendigo slump off.
So Kilo has. Are we like in an alley
Mhm.
at this point? Yeah, Kilo has like a trash can lid. She's like ready to attack the Wendigo, but then sees it slump over, and then sees Bel Yaga talking to herself. I don't know if you were not saying if you were saying those words out loud or not, but
Probably more of a mental projection, but probably in the same spirit of like when the cold iron, when the eyes flashed blue. There's probably that connection. You're seeing like similar like energy radiating from Bel Yaga.
Okay.
yeah. So I'll just sort of shake your shoulder a little bit, and be like, "You okay? What's going on?"
Yeah.
What
Hi.
happened? Did that thing hurt you? Are you okay? Toss the trash can lid aside.
If you'll believe it, that was Ugramesh trying to reach out.
That's who we're saving? It's Wendigo?
No. I'll relay kind of the story as I understand it, that Ugramesh has been captured and is trying to escape the best way they know how, by basically possessing spirits and reaching out to others. And this just happened to be the one we found, or the one that was able to reach us.
So Laterna, as somebody who I think from your backstory, you said you're kind of anti people controlling others.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about this, hearing that there's somebody basically, possessing all these Wendigos?
Laterna didn't realize or wasn't paying attention to that part. She knows the names of the rulers, and she knows one of them's a robot and one of them's not. And she says, "Oh, we're trying to save Ogremesh? That's the robot, right?" It must be, if we're saving it.
Ander, you can't clean yourself here. Yeah. So how do you guys answer?
Like, well, we don't who we're saving. I kind of think we're overthrowing the government, and it's like a 50-50 if we're doing the right thing or not. But
yeah, because even our contact can't be trusted. They tried to bug all of us initially.
That's a good point.
Oh, kitty.
but I can tell you the one thing is that who Bella Yaga was talking to was not the robot. There's that.
Oh, well, then I'm glad they're dead. And she looks at the Wendigo.
Well,
Nice. Go ahead.
I think that I'm assuming based on what transponded, what did the souls that from the myriad of the Wendigo now inhabit in Belyaga, or is
Yeah, so my thought, and I'm open to editing this, but my thought is that some of its souls are in you, and some of yours are in it, although it's close to a zombie at this point. So I'm thinking you can, with some difficulty, you can still have it limp along, but it's primarily now residing in you, and with it has comes this sort of like exposure to Ogrimesh's voice. In fact, I think I'm going to put it on your area. Okay, so while you guys are thinking about that, so you see this garage, you have a contact at the bar that can presumably get you the location where Ogrimesh is being held. I have tokens that I should spend, so let's throw some things out there. Troopers are always easy, and I feel like this would be a good place for like a machine or something. So yeah, let's do some mechs. So yeah, you see these Conclave troopers. You've spotted them in patrols elsewhere in the city. They seem to have a particularly high concentration here, like almost like they're guarding something. And you also see these. Oops, I don't know if I shared those, but you also see flitting around are these like almost little goblin head looking things. They used to be like surveillance machines. Now they've been repurposed for anything like utility, like carrying stuff, guarding things, which they're not very good at, messaging. Mostly they're identifiable anytime you see this like bright flare of like exhaust, and they usually bounce off at least like one thing on their way to trying to get to something. But yeah, so that you can hear like commotion and stuff, and sort of buried in the hangar, you know, near like the smelting foundries and stuff, you can see a little small contained building, which you would imagine is like this impromptu bar, and that's probably where the contact is waiting with information. You probably also get the impression that the troopers have effectively formed a perimeter. They are not letting people in or out, essentially, unless they're authorized.
Well, I think we've already established that subtlety is not Belyaga's strong suit. So I turn to the group and say, I think I can offer you a distraction, and maybe you all can get in and find the information we need.
So Laterna double checks where they're trying to go and realizes it's the bar. And she says, "You mean past all those troopers?
Those juicy human troopers?"
Belyaga just nods.
Is there one that's like a little bit more by itself than the others?"
Sure, why not? In fact, let's say one of them actually breaks ranks as you see a figure approach the foundry, like maybe from a different alley, and you see your old friend Sir Rudder, a bit the worse for wear. He's probably had some arms torn off, but he had some to spare, and he appears to essentially have like finished his job for the day at the dock, or he's taking an early lunch. He's looking up at the sky like, this terrible and unfortuitous weather, but a good shot of molten iron sounds like just the ticket. And the guards basically like have to check his credentials like 3 times because they're bent in the scuffle. And finally, this one guard is like, "Whatever, man. I remember you. Like, just go in."
You're that weird guy.
Yeah. And Sir Rudder's like, no, protocol and decorum. Check again. And finally, the guy like convinces Sir Rudder that, yes, I've really authenticated you. Get in the bar. And then he's just like standing under a lamppost by himself, like, "This job, man." He's probably like pulls out his phone and is checking his messages. So yes, he is by himself.
So Laterna holds up just like a little random piece of metal or like a screw or something and says, "Just follow me." And she walks up to the party. She says that, and then she heads for the one guard that just checked the credentials.
Okay. Do you guys follow?
Sure.
Okay.
And then as I approach that guard, I would like to hex the guard.
Okay.
So we'll see if this actually works first. Let's see. Roll plus sly. So I was trying to hex the guard to see this bolt as the credentials that Sir Rudder had.
Okay. I'm going to take an extra token to say it appears that you've succeeded.
So I waltz right up to him and show him this bolt and be like, "We're going in."
As a brief aside, just so I don't forget, Kilo, you did tell Laterna about the tracker. Did you guys do anything about the tracker?
I don't know that we did.
Okay, that's totally fine. If you had intended to and forgot, feel free to edit that. Otherwise, I'll assume everybody's aware of it and you've chosen it's okay for now.
Is the weather bad?
The weather is at this point fairly overcast and dark, despite being noon, and it's beginning to you see snow drifting down from the approaching snow devil.
My thought is Laterna would like Kilo to remove it, but maybe once we're inside.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so the guard, he does a double take at your credentials, and he seems to check it much more seriously than Sir Rudder's. He eventually waves Laterna through, and then he looks at your companions, and he's like, "So where are theirs? Or did you try and make it look like you had all three?" Oh, Matthew, your mic dropped.
Sorry, I was muted.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think I just look back and remember them and be like, "Oh no, they're with me."
He's like, "Yeah, ma'am, I don't know what to tell you. It's security's tight." And he actually probably waves one of the imps over, which like bounces off the concrete like at Laterna's feet, nearly hitting you, and it like stabilizes, floats to a stop next to him, and he's like, "Can you take these guys over to the service desk just to check them?" Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I think Bill Yaga is going to stand up as tall as she possibly can and just kind of look down at the guard. And I think a coerce plus tough probably makes sense here. Is she says, "I think we're good."
Okay. Sure.
Can Laterna add, if you don't let them through, then you have to take care of the bear?
Okay. Yeah, I guess you can't see his face go white behind his helmet, but you can read his body language as you're like, this is definitely not how he wants to spend his like Thursday night. And he's like, "I go on through." And he looks at Kilo and he's like, "I guess what's your excuse?"
At this point, Kilo would like to. I'm going to use my remote downlink glasses and kind of look at the imp. And I want to kind of like disguise it as what would be good? Maybe like a missile, like a cartoonishly big missile or something.
Okay.
And kind of make it look like it's coming at him, and then it like misses him, but then it loops around. Actually, I can't control it, can I?
I'm okay with that. I'm thinking this maybe manifests as you essentially like cause it to
kind of hack it.
Yeah, like you take control of its thrusters, you cause it to reconfigure into like a more sort of like seek and destroy mode. And yeah, so suddenly his imp companion that's about to like, it just like starts careening around like a Looney Tunes missile.
Can I make it heckle him?
Yeah.
And maybe like steal one of his things, steal something from him.
Oh, I like that. All right, let's see what he has. That's a bit extreme. You already have that. That's the one I was thinking of. I had this in my mind. I should have just pulled it. Yes, it actually grabs his motorcycle keys as it's flying past. And basically this by the time he's done dealing with this, you can be long gone. All three of you can essentially saunter up. You definitely, it's immediately warmer. It's still a bit dark. Like most of the light comes from like molten metal and sparks. And there's a kind of single flickering bulb over this essentially just shack that they've built as a little sort of after hours respite for the workers. You go inside, it's not that much warmer, but you see a bunch of people sort of relaxing, like taking off boots. It smells like sweat and oil. And but you would immediately imagine that most of the people in here are just troopers and workers who are off duty. Like you see plenty of guns leaning against tables. You see several imps that are essentially clustering in the rafters, drinking like fire whiskey or something. And Sir Rudder is propped up at the bar, like probably downing shots of like molten iron, like oiling his wounds. And let's see who your contact is. No, she's on the boat. This makes a lot of sense. So your contact is currently engaged in essentially like an arm wrestling contest, which he is winning handily. It's this captain. You think he was once human, but at this point he's like the size of an ogre. He's got steroids. He's got like augments. He's very superhuman. He's basically like brushing up against the rafters. There's probably even an imp at this point sleeping on his back.
Wow.
And he just tips somebody over, like slams the table. Sir Rudder is like, so improprietous. But yeah, and he's like, who's next? And you guys could take your opportunity to like saunter up as his previous victim leaves. I'm gonna go ahead.
Before that, Laterna wants that tracker taken out.
Oh, sure. You're asking what, Kilo?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Says, all right, human, prove that you're, not worthless.
So I think what Kila's gonna do. So let's say maybe it's like where do you think? Maybe like in the back of your neck? Would she have put it? Someplace you would never see it.
That makes sense.
Like right on her forehead.
The one place they would never look.
Seriously.
There's a fifth green light or whatever. Okay.
And yeah, Kilo's got a multi-tool. And so he pulls it out. I pull it out, and I've got like a wine corkscrew and like a nail file, and then there's like a screwdriver. And I get to work. Just kind of unscrew it. Maybe like have to like lift like a little panel or something. I don't know how sophisticated.
I was imagining you'd literally just go doink, done.
Okay. But while you guys are doing that, since I know Belyaga rolled last, but Belyaga is probably the one least distracted. Belyaga, can you give me a realize roll? And to do it with a +1 because you smell, I think, familiar scents.
Ooh.
Okay, so realize is brighter, calm. Okay.
I guess you could also do it as a forage roll too. That's fine.
Yeah, I think I'll go with forage. So plus sly.
And you can still add the +1. Oh, kitty. You're a kitty too. Yeah. That's fine. I'm going to upgrade that because I'm going to need those tokens in a minute. You are realizing what they maybe are too distracted to notice, which is Laterna's failure with the guard did not pass muster. And so as each of you in turn basically like forced your way past him, he's essentially just adding to a silent list of like, all right, like we need to deal with these folks. So your contact is in the corner. He seems legitimately like basically just kind of having a good time and probably waiting for you guys. But you have noticed the same familiar scent from the liquor that Mac was serving you guys earlier. And you generally, as you're watching, you see more people are paying attention to you than you would expect, I guess. And you'd expect a lot given that you're a giant bear. You imagine that this is probably a trap waiting to spring. From body language, you think you probably have maybe 2 minutes.
Okay.
But in the meantime, Kilo is successful getting the tracker off, and you guys see Captain Grain essentially like knocking back. He actually probably, instead of doing shots, he has a dainty wine glass, and he seems to really enjoy wine. There's like 4 empty bottles.
Oh my god.
So what do you guys do?
I think I'm going to walk over and sit down across from him as if I'm about to do an arm wrestle.
He's like,
But-
oh.
And as we're sitting there, I say, "Why are you a wine drinker? You seem more like the fan of rum."
He like clasps your hand warmly, and he's like, I knew you had good taste. He does actually arm wrestle you because he legitimately wants to see if he can beat a bear. I'll just let you decide whether or not he's stronger than you since you just rolled.
I think with those arms, I'm probably not going to have a good chance. So
Okay. So yeah, he gets the ceremony out of the way, simmers down a bit, and he's like, let me actually peek at what scene 3 is going to be, because that's where he tells you. He's like, yes, good. It's good that you've come. The conclave, we sort of serve both Ogremesh and the Firefly, and this whole like ongoing feud is essentially just tearing us apart. Like we're being pitted against ourselves, against the citizens. Like this is nonsense. So yeah, the Firefly is actually keeping Ogremesh locked up in his headquarters in the Frontier State Building. It's basically this like old abandoned TV station that he's sort of turned into a fortress. But he looks up, even though you're in this like shack, like you can kind of see through, there's gaps in the ceiling, and basically he's like proverbially like the weather is definitely turning. So I would not dally.
I don't think we're going to be staying here much longer anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, so he hands you yet another code word. He's like, on behalf of our mutual friend, and he winks. And of course, the code word this time is like tequila.
Yeah.
But yeah, you definitely get the sense that a lot of the troopers in the room are basically quietly drawing arms. I'll figure out if Sir Rudder is in on the plan or if that's too conniving for him to have picked up on. But you got about 12 seconds before they open. What do you guys want to do?
Can Laterna do something?
Sure.
So now that the tracker is dealt with, which was her most pressing care, her next concern is that all these imps are being forced to slave away in this factory. And she's been wirelessly trying to find the whatever it is, the managerial software network thing, blah, 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 and override it.
Okay. I like that. Real quick before you roll, Kilo, would you know what he's trying to do? And if so, would you want to help him? Up to and including sharing your glasses.